Relentless Reinvention, coupled with empathy. The leadership mindset powering John Hammerle's rise to chief legal officer is nothing short of inspirational. From Michigan to Dubai, theater major to law school star, law firm partner to CLO, John has endless wisdom to impart, plus some great movie recommendations at the end. Welcome to Do More, Be Better. Let's get into it. John Hammerle is the Chief Legal Officer and General Counsel of ERMCO, an electrical equipment manufacturer of transformers in the United States. He was previously the General Counsel of True Value Company, a hardware retailer. He has a wealth of experience in the legal industry and an inspiring viewpoint on both light and movies, which is his favorite pastime. And I'm super excited to talk to him today. Welcome, John.
Hey, thank you, Sal, and thanks for having me. You sound super excited, and I'm super excited to be here, man.
Well,
love this podcast.
Well, it's going to be a fun conversation today. We've known each other for a very long time, which means that there's all kinds of inside knowledge you can pull out when you ask questions and hear answers. And so it usually goes to fun places. One thing I always like to do to start off these podcasts is to give people a feel of you beyond the professional lawyer. And so what I always like to start off with is, what is your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
Well, you kind of alluded to it in the beginning there, Sal. If I'm not working, I hang out with my family for sure. I have dad duties and spouse duties. But you can find me in a movie theater. I see about 400 movies every year, which is, some would say, sickening and some would say good for you. But I've been a movie lover my whole life, and I try to see every new release and create my top 10 list at the end of the year. So yeah, when I'm not working, you could probably find me on the weekend at any given point in the day, night, day, with others, by myself. I'm watching movies.
One of the things that I always found so interesting about you is, like, when I first met you, I was like, what do you do? You're like, oh, I watch movies. I was like, oh, movies are cool. You're like, no, like I'll work, because like we were in a big law firm, young, working late hours, and you're like, you get done with work at like 9, and I'd go home and you'd go to the movie theater. And I was like, okay, sounds good. But what I thought was an interesting dynamic with you is you also love to run. And so I thought it was this cool thing, which is like, you're not just like this fat guy sitting in a chair like watching movies. You're also athletic. And I think that's an interesting dichotomy, because I always try to find the differences in people and how they interact with the world. And I always thought that was an interesting piece of you. And so one question I had for you was running something that relieved stress for you the way movies might, or how did you find the pastime to do both those things?
Yeah, well, it certainly, I'm probably going to die young, because I would stay up too late and I would get up too early to exercise, to run. Why I did it? I love food, man. I love to work hard, play hard. So when I'm eating, I like to go all in. If I'm out with friends, I like to enjoy some adult beverages. And if you want to do that as much as I do, if you don't take care of yourself, it's gonna be rough. I always there was a time, I think it was like in 2010, where I could see, midway through my career at a law firm we both worked at, I could see the scale tipping in a way, and I wasn't really doing anything regularly, and then I decided to I'm gonna run a 5K every day. And so that's how it started. And I just would do that every morning. And sometimes even if I was out partying or going to movies at midnight, you'd still get up at 6 a.m., get it in before you had to start taking care of the kids. Yeah, I just made it like a routine, and after like a month, and now it's just stuck. And I think since 2010, I've been more or less running a 5K every day since that year.
How did you develop that self-motivation over time? Because I don't think that's something that everybody has. I mean, everybody seems self-motivated for their own benefits, right? Like, I really love cake. I'm going to find a way to eat cake every day. But like those things that are kind of hard, you need something inside of you that drives you. How did you find that as you were progressing your career? Did you always have it as a kid?
I think I always had it as a kid. I was always kind of competitive and self-aware, tried to better myself at every turn. I was kind of aware of what I was doing, how I could do it better. I could, fit in, adapt to any given situation. So I've always I think it's just like a self-awareness. And it was so funny. I remember seeing an article that I pulled out of Entertainment Weekly, and it was, do you remember the movie Prince of Persia with
Oh
Jake
yeah,
Gyllenhaal?
really not good, right?
It's not good. It's not good at all. But there was an article in there, and it said Gyllenhaal used to be like Donnie Darko. He used to be like really small and like, skinny and sort of weak looking. And then he comes out in Prince of Persia. He's like jacked, and he's looking totally muscular and healthy and strong. And they had a Body by Jake like panel in Entertainment Weekly, and it's just like, well, here's how he did it. He worked out. He ran with a weighted vest, and he did a 5 mile run on the beach every day. And then he ate like grilled chicken for dinner, and they kind of broke down his meals. And I saw that, and I was like, you know what? If Jake Gyllenhaal can do it, I can do it.
Jake Gyllenhaal is ripped. Just count those abs.
And it was sort of that was sort of the catalyst there too. I was like, I want to. There's some amount of like keeping up with the Joneses to it, right? But yeah, I don't know if it's just self motivation, self awareness, wanting to tackle something, improve yourself. But that's kind of how I got into it, I think.
I mean, is there any part of this that made you do it because it was a movie actor that was doing it and that drove you a little bit?
You know what? I brought that up because I'm sure that played into it, right? As someone who watches as many movies as I do and wants to not only make them but to see yourself as a character in a movie, to see actors doing that. And and we might get into this, but I was a theater major in college, so like that, the actor's life and becoming a character, putting on a role and sort of embracing that lifestyle was always appealing. And so I'm sure that played into it, Sal, where I just wanted to be like Jake Gyllenhaal.
I mean, doesn't everybody?
I mean, I can only speak for myself, but yes, the man can do comedy, drama. He's very good. I just watched Presumed Innocent on Apple TV. Did you watch that one?
I haven't watched it yet.
Okay. It's good. If you've ever seen the movie with Harrison Ford, which came out in like 1990, I thought I knew all the, twists and turns it would take because I'd seen that movie. And to the show's credit, it offers something new for people who are aware of the source material or have never read it, or watched the original movie.
We'll get into movies a little bit more in a minute. I want to
Okay.
touch back on the self-motivating and the running, because I think one thing that I heard that was interesting is you like running, right?
I do like running. Yeah, I've actually in the last year and a half, I've moved over to Orange Theory, which is you're still running on a treadmill. But so I've done a little less outdoor running. But yeah, I really liked it. And sure enough, you know what helped hugely? I think 2010, 2011, as I was running outside every day, going for longer distances. I think I ran a marathon in 2013, but like that was commensurate with that was sort of the rise of the podcast too, right? And I think I loved getting out and having the time to just listen to a podcast. And some of the podcasts I listen to, no surprise, are movie related, and they're really long. They're like 2.5, 3 hours long. And so at some point I started putting them on double speed, to fit them all in on the runs. And it was kind of like, when you make the switch from Coke to Diet Coke, your taste buds, it takes a while. You're like, Diet Coke tastes terrible. The double speed hurt my ears at first. And then, you go from to 1 to 1.5, and then, just baby step up. But that was also a huge appeal to running outside and getting it done, was the health benefits, but also the chance to like knock out some entertainment while you're doing it. It was two birds, one stone.
I ask because I think in reflecting on my own journey and as I talk to others, this self-motivation is something that there's some nurture to it, but it's a lot of nature. It's like who you are, but it's also very tied into something you enjoy. If you hate the thing, the most self-motivated person in the world is just not going to do it, right? And I think for me, if I look back on my career, the moments where I have not done well or I didn't achieve the things I wanted to achieve, it's because frankly, I just hated what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm curious for you if melding things you enjoy with work has helped you be self-motivated and growth-oriented as you progressed in your career?
That's a good question. I have to think it has, right? You know, the approach you take to your life, if that's self-motivating and you're doing things to, you know, you're focusing on things, you're tackling them, you're giving them your all in your personal life, that's got to carry over to your work. And you don't just like shake those habits, right? I've never been one where this is me at work and this is me at home, right? There's no two different Johns. Like who I am at work is who I am socially, is who I am with my family. Yes, there are some, you know, I may not sing as much as at work, you know, as I do around the house or do crazy voices with the kids, but you know, I do have a veneer of respectability that I put on at work. But who I am genuinely, I don't think there's a distinction. I try not to create that separation between work self and personal. So the habits you do personally have to carry over, and I believe they do. I do play hard, I do work hard, and the self-motivation I have outside of work fuels what I do when I'm at work as well.
Did you find it hard bringing your authentic self into your work ecosystem, or was it just an easy transition? Because I feel like some people get stuck in like take movies, right? I might love movies, but will that be unprofessional? Will my boss, my peers think I'm not the best lawyer or whatever it might be? How did you balance being your authentic self?
I think it was not so much a trial and error, but yeah, whenever you go somewhere new, and as someone who kind of thinks of themselves as being adaptable, which I do think I am that, you have to feel the way out. Right. And what happened was when I got to the law firm, you know, I thought you had to act a certain way, right? You're making a certain salary level and you're downtown at a major, you know, mid-sized law firm. And, you know, you're living the corporate life sort of, you know, in the city. And I thought you had to act a certain way. But what I found as I got more comfortable in the role with my colleagues, with partners, with everyone I interacted with at work, basically, is that the more I was myself, the more I sort of showed my colors and embraced what makes me different and unique among my peers, the more I sort of was rewarded for it, or the more I feel like it got me where I wanted to go, right? I got access to certain partners in the firm that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I was brought on stage for like the firm's 25th anniversary, and I'm there with the two managing partners, and the whole firm and all of their spouses are there, and then we're at, you know, the Ritz-Carlton, I think it was. You know, I'm up there in my third year, you know, of the firm, and I'm being elevated with others who are way above me. But I feel like the more I was myself, the more people liked it, the more I felt comfortable. And I think there is a desire among the people you work with that if you can bring a breath of fresh air to what can sometimes be, you know, pretty grueling work that takes its toll on a lot of people mentally, substance abuse, you know, the profession is rife with all of that. But I think it was kind of eye-opening to me that if I just was myself, I think there was an opportunity for success was there for the taking. And it's not in every case, you know, like sometimes you have to pull back and you do have to, you know, adapt to the situation. But I found it was true when I went to True Value as well. There was a question, should I put the movie posters up in my office? Should I have all the toys in my office? Is this going to make me look unprofessional or amateurish or immature? And that's not what happened. People would come in, the CEO and the CFO, and they would say, God, you went all out, didn't you? I love this. And you know, what happened too is as general counsel, or before that, just as a in-house attorney, people in a corporate setting, regular employees who don't always interact with lawyers, we're kind of intimidating folks, right? We're scary. If they're coming to us, something's gone wrong. And what I think my true self, and when I embraced that, what it allowed others to do is to feel like I was approachable and to come with me with their issues on a proactive basis rather than after the proverbial shit has hit the fan, right? So you're on the front end of it. I don't know. This is a long-winded answer. I'll stop here.
The long-winded answers are the best answers because it pulls out a whole bunch of nuggets. You took that knowledge that being your authentic self was going to help you and be a differentiator. It also, I'm assuming, helped that self-motivation, which in turn helped you be a better lawyer, better work product, all the rest of it. I'm curious if that's something you mentor the junior lawyers as they come into your team. And I don't mean junior necessarily in age, but like you're the general counsel, more in-house counsel. They're coming in, they're nervous, they want to do a good job. Is that something you counsel, mentoring them, onboarding them to do better?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just in the onboarding either. It's sort of how you interact with them at the beginning and in all of your one-on-one or other interactions thereafter. Empathy goes a long way, right? And if you're able to put yourself in others' positions, hopefully you recognize that this can be scary, coming into a new place and meeting with a GC. I always acknowledge the situation, whether it's, onboarding or some other time, but where they're at mentally, and what I can do to sort of compassionately, thoughtfully help them become their best selves. Because if everybody's feeling comfortable in the role and feel like they're supported, they will allow themselves to be themselves. And then that just takes away one layer of things that get in the way of people doing their best at work, right? It's hard enough. The job itself is probably going to throw a million things at you, and you're going to feel overwhelmed and undercapable. And you just have to, whatever you can do to help with that and make that a little bit easier when that stuff happens is good.
I think it's something that leaders, managers often forget, is that your role is not just to make sure people get work done. It's to help grow them to do the best version of themselves that they can. So I think that is really inspiring language for you and for people to hear, is you can do a really good job and be a phenomenal general counsel while still having empathy for the people that work for you, come to ask you for help and aid, and get the best out of them. And I think that's something important for people who listen here, is remember that authentic self, different self is good, not bad. And so I applaud that from you. I think you're an inspirational leader in many ways. You are your authentic self. People really feel comfortable talking, interacting with you. How do you then transfer that into your team so that they manage people below them and they work with you in that way? Is that a culture thing you install? Is it something you repeat? Is it a mantra you have on your wall, maybe in movie posters? I don't know, right? Like, how do you get that out? How do you get the best out of your team?
Yeah, well, it's certainly not like a mantra in my office, but how you get it is by sort of practicing yourself what you want them to do, and allowing them to see it on display every interaction. Right. So it's not like we're calling attention to it or that I'm calling it out for them. But with the legal team and department I try to create is one that's sort of we typically don't have levels where you have attorneys reporting to other attorneys. The legal departments I've been in, one at True Value, was very small. Right. So they don't really have direct reports themselves that they're dealing with, but they're interacting with people throughout the company, who are their essentially clients every day. And so the values you instill, it comes down to having worked on the code of conduct. Leaders set the tone at the top, right? And when you're in a legal department, sort of that's what you know, right? Like what you see your leader doing is how you think the whole company should operate. And so ideally, they take the interactions that we have in our little legal sphere and apply that outside to everyone. And for the most part, I think that's true. If they enjoy working with their leader and enjoy working with the team that's been built, they will be able to better serve clients within the company at every turn, because there's a certain level of fulfillment and ideology that they've got that they know they can utilize with us.
So let's talk movies for a little while. What made you in love with movies? Was that a kid thing? Was that a moment in life? Do you have that light bulb went off moment?
I think I was 2 or 3. My parents, great as they are, would take me to movies and stuff. But it was my dad's brother, my uncle Bob, was an attorney down in Indianapolis, criminal defense attorney. He would take me to see Return of the Jedi and The Secret of Nim. And I remember, just The Muppets Take Manhattan, loving these movies as a kid. as a 3-year-old. And then for some reason, like when you would go to the bookstore or the library and you'd have to pick a book, I would gravitate towards the book adaptations of the movies I had seen. And so then it just became like an endless cycle of what I was reading was movie related, what I was, wanting to go see, what I would watch on TV. We would have VHS of any number of movies that we would record, off of, like, when you'd get that 1 week of HBO for free and you'd be like, I'm recording all of this. This is going to be mine.
On a VHS,
So
yeah.
I think it was just, and that it just sort of snowballed from there, I feel like. But it was my uncle taking me to movies as a very young child and seeing some, totemic pictures of the time certainly like fueled the fire.
What made you then go to school for theater versus going to a film school or something?
Well, in high school, I went to high school in Dubai for 3 years, which I think and then I moved to Florida, did my senior year there, but got involved in theater at all turns in high school. So I was always into, theater, and it's an offshoot. They don't offer film in high school, right? There's no film class. So it was the closest thing, I think, to it with the acting involved. And then when I did go to college at Butler in Indianapolis, I did go for TV, radio, film was my major. And I was going to, but I had done theater in high school. So I looked into theater when I got there after I had already been accepted and, it was a month into school at that point, freshman year. And I thought, well, I can throw my hat in the ring here. I mean, as I did that, I just found I liked the people in the theater program more than I did the TV, radio, film. And there wasn't a ton of film back in the day. It was mostly like the college radio station and it was off-site, and I would DJ, and there would be nobody on campus could get the signal to listen to the radio show that you were doing. So it wasn't what I had hoped it would be. And so in theater, even one of my best friends in the theater program loved movies. And so we would make films through that, and you'd have a whole roster of actors that you could use to make the movies. And now he just directed his second film, and I'm still involved with him on that front. So the theater program actually introduced me and got me more closer to film than I otherwise would have been, I think.
It shows you again who you are, which is like, maybe it wasn't exactly what you wanted, but you figured out another path to get to where you wanted to go. As you fell in love with movies, then theater, is that what drove you to binge 400 movies a year? Has this been a thing ever since you were 18? Yeah, like, how long have you been doing this?
It's been a while. I used to, now I use Letterboxd, which is amazing. And if you want to see all the movies I'm watching and reviewing, you can find me there at Hammervision. But I used to, I obviously didn't see as many back in the day. Like I didn't have the money to go, or my parents wouldn't take me every weekend to see something. So I'd probably see maybe 50 a year. But I'd write them down. I'd have a little notebook, and I'd have all the movies I've seen with the date I saw them and my star rating or grade. Which is, when you look at some of those now, it's pretty embarrassing, like what you were giving good marks to, because you didn't know movies could suck back in the day. And now I think it's just, once I, in college, you have a lot more autonomy, and I would go on my own, and with my wife, my now wife, we'd go all the time. And then when I got out and had my own money and a job, and then it was like, before kids, the guardrails, I was free as a bird. I could go all the time, and we lived in Evanston, and I lived about 10 minutes from downtown. I'd run over during the day and see 3 in a row, and that continued. I would stay when we had kids. You'd put them to bed, and then my wife would go to bed, but I'd still, you still need that me time, essentially, which for me time is just watching a movie. Like that's my self-care. So, I would still hit the theater, and if you're going every weekend and then watching stuff at night, I mean, sometimes you're watching like 45 minutes of something before you go to bed, and then you finish it the next night or whatever, but it adds up to 400, sometimes more.
How did you go from movie obsessed to lawyer?
So my senior year of college, as an elective, I took an entertainment law class as part of my theater major, or TV, radio, film secondary major. And so that that, as your senior year, second semester, I had no designs on going to law school, but I also knew, um, as an actor, if that's what I was going to do, that's a tough road ahead, right? You really got to be in it to win it. You got to be able to take no, and accept no as an answer for 99% of your career. And I don't like hearing no. And I think I was receptive to that entertainment law class I took. I've always had kind of one foot in the creative, and I've always been sort of, practical and self-aware and self-motivated, right? So I thought that maybe that was a interesting way to bridge the gap between, creative and yet something professionally fulfilling and, something that would pay the bills essentially. And then so I applied to law school late. I worked for Sprint for a year because I didn't have anything ready to go to law school right out of college. And then I did pretty well my first year. I think I've always been, pretty good at school. Like I just got it. Some people just get it, like how it works, how to write an essay, how to, get your homework done, how to not procrastinate. I think I was always just sort of able to navigate that. And I did it during undergrad, so it wasn't like some weird, a lot of people shrug off undergrad or, party it up. Trust me, I did, but I also got what I needed to done. And then, so law school was never that odd for me to do that. And then it just snowballed from there, like I thought I would do entertainment law. That's what I went for. But because I did pretty well, then that opened opportunities for like summer associate positions and law review. And then I found myself being a commercial litigator and doing entertainment law as sort of a pro bono basis where I could and helping my friends.
Do you regret not going to Hollywood and being a mailroom guy for 4 years and like, doing the whole like prototypical movie, how do you get into the industry thing?
I don't know that no. I mean, I think it's all worked out the way it was meant to be, I think. I did intern for a summer at Ebert and Roper in the movies here in Chicago. And so I had a little taste of that during undergrad. But yeah, would I have wanted to go out there? I don't know, right? Like it was, I don't regret it, but it would be interesting if we see what that would be like. I'd be open to it. Others.
Let's jump into legal departments a little bit. You took on a new job at a new company. How many lawyers are there internal, in-house?
Counting me?
Yes. Right. So it's blank slate. You get to come in and make it John Hammerle's movie, The Legal Department. And so I'm curious, as you've looked back on your time at True Value, you helped grow that team, run that team, what you're looking for as you build your legal department. Because I know a lot of listeners who are in the legal industry and in this role are curious about how you go about doing that. What are the things that matter? What matters to you?
There are so many good attorneys in the world, right? So subject matter expertise, work product. It's often hard to get a real sense of that in an interview as you're building out a team. And depending on their credentials, right, there's an implicit sort of acknowledgement that based on what they're presenting to the world on their resume or LinkedIn, that they have the skill set, to do the work. You can usually suss that out, pretty quick, or tick that checkbox off because that they've done this, they've worked on these contracts, they've handled these sorts of matters. Okay, they'll be able to do the job. Are they? It's funny. The cultural fit question is one that is by and large the biggest for me. Will they? Once you get into a company, you have to understand what its philosophy is. How does it operate? What kind of people does it attract? What kind of people does it retain? Who likes working here? And why do they like working here? Once you understand those parameters, you can kind of understand what the culture is. And it's still pretty new for me at ERMCO. I'm still trying to, get the lay of the land and understand the culture. But I think that cultural fit question is something that I definitely prioritize. And it's more than that. How are they going to, will they be good for the company? Is the number one question. Will they help? Will they support it? Will they provide the clients what they need? But also, is it somebody that I feel will have not only the the company's best interests at heart, but the legal departments, and will be somebody who will come to work and will not need their hand held or to be motivated to do certain things. They will already have that self-motivation because they want to be there. They want to do a good job, and they're just not only a good human being, but a good colleague and a good employee. I mean, if you can knock off all those things, which is usually what I'm looking to fill in a role, and that good human being should not be overlooked, right? That's something that at its core
Yeah, I have at this stage in my life a no asshole rule, right? Like,
yeah.
I just don't need to deal with it. And frankly, I don't think you need to be a jerk to be successful. So you can go do it wherever else you want to go. Something you said in there is something that has been a thread in everybody I've talked to, which is self-motivation and how you hire for that and how you find that. Because we seem to be in an age where it's generational for sure, but like we're moving into different generations as they're coming into the workforce. And you see a lot of this conversation around don't work hard enough. They need too much attention. They want too much praise. Nobody wants to work anymore. All these kinds of ideas. And when you get into like the meat of what's going on, there's a million different reasons, right? Some of it's just pretty straightforward. Like they're not getting paid enough money and they're just frustrated, or they hate the work. And so obviously they're not going to really do it. But I'm curious your thoughts of like when you're interviewing or you're looking for somebody, how do you find that spark, right? Because again, I always talk about it in the context of like as an entrepreneur and doing different things, you could look at me and say, oh, Sal doesn't work because maybe I'm out for a run in the middle of the day or whatever. But when I put my daughter to bed, I'm usually working, right? So like I'm just trading time, but that's my own self-motivation. How do you find that in somebody?
I think a lot of it is the personality they show in an interview is key, right? If you're talking to a stone-faced, immovable object that may be totally professional and totally capable, but you can't really have a conversation with, and they can't read cues, and they can't, a lot of people don't listen or don't engage the person speaking with any sort of feedback as they're talking. So when I'm interviewing somebody and they're talking to me, I usually try to engage and give them cues to, keep going where they're going, and the more people can pick up on that, the more they can carry conversations with an ease that shows they're comfortable being themselves is usually, I think you can sort of uncover some of that, right?
It's definitely a hard thing to hire for. And I know everybody struggles with it. But what I heard about that is sort of try to get to understand the personality behind the professional, and you get a better feel for what they might be capable of, which is good insight. As
You definitely said that better than me, by the way. I'm gonna steal that.
You can't. I'm going to copyright it.
Okay.
As you are building out your legal team or your legal department, have you thought about the inflection point we are in sort of in the legal industry? AI seems to be literally everywhere. It's like the endless conversation. And also this idea of a true not finally, but finally getting a digital transformation or a transformation of sorts. So I'm curious where you think technology will fit in the legal department of the future, because you are sitting here and you have an opportunity to mold it in whatever way you want, right? And I think the old version was really sort of standard. I have this, I need to hire a commercial lawyer for the contracts, and I need to hire maybe a privacy and security lawyer or a regulatory lawyer or whatever it might be. Have you started to think about what the future legal department looks like and where technology plays in that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've definitely thought about it, and I think there are tools out there. Leaning into them and embracing them is going to be clutch, right? As you're building out, it's doing things the way they've always been done, or the way I knew them to be a true value may not be the right move going forward as I build out ERMCO's legal department. And so understanding the terrain and being willing to adapt as we've discussed, and take on and utilize more AI functionality is definitely something I'll be considering. And whether that means you're, doing things yourself more and there's not a need to build out a full legal team, I have my doubts about that, just giving some of the counseling that will need to occur with others in the company who may not be AI savvy themselves, right? But it could impact, the use of outside counsel, right? If you've got the tools, any in-house legal department is sort of the bulk of the work is done in-house, but it requires outside help, right? And so, because they're the experts, and if you need if you need a right answer, or there's something you don't know in your sphere of experience, you need the assist. And I think that's where technology will be very useful for in-house legal teams, where you can maintain perhaps a very small, even if you're dealing with a big company, you may not need the same number of lawyers in-house. You'll still need some, but it could, keep teams small, and it could reduce the need for outside counsel spend. And so being willing to understand that and balance, what you're spending on outside counsel versus what it will cost to implement AI programs is going to be sort of the balancing act to undertake.
Something I heard in there that I think is always important is people. Where do people fit in technology? I think oftentimes you get lost in like what the technology can do and not how people can use it or how it impacts people. And your point that if you're an in-house legal team, your clients are the business and you have to interact with the business. And at least not yet, we don't have just AI robots running around talking to humans. And so getting the nuance of what's going on and being engaged with them and creating a partnership is important. And I think that connects back to something you said earlier, which is this idea of scary lawyer. Business comes to you because something went wrong, or they're worried about something, or they need something. And how do you empathize with them and make it easier for them to come to the legal department? Where do you think the most impact a legal department can have as you come into a new business? You're ostensibly the first lawyer, company that otherwise was working well. Where do you think you can make your most important impact in the beginning?
The most important impact I can is to start putting legal guardrails on processes and policies that have sort of either flown under the radar or been loosely approached. And just, our job is to mitigate risk and maintain the corporate entity as an ongoing functional business. And I think when you haven't had in-house counsel before, what I'm seeing is that, there's no captain on the legal ship, sort of making sure that everything's done the way it should or needs to be to maintain compliance and protect the company. And so getting in and putting those guardrails in place as quickly as possible will be important, I feel. And
what do you think about this idea that I always say this about legal departments, that if legal departments are focused on being the best lawyers instead of helping the business sell more widgets or whatever it is, they end up getting themselves in trouble because the business views them as just like a stop sign, a pain point, versus viewing the legal department as an augmented aid to the business. Does that resonate to you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it gets back to I've never wanted to be the person saying no. Like, it's not my job to dampen the entrepreneurial spirit and the business opportunities in front of folks. We just need to, you want it to be done smartly and with some mitigation of risk, or at least everybody understanding what the risks are, right? And going into it eyes wide open. And if they're doing that, every business opportunity has some level of risk associated with it. What is it like? It's kind of like bowling, right? You can still throw the ball down and knock down some pins, but let's at least put some bumpers on the side so you don't fall in along the way, right? In the gutter. And so you're just trying to keep people out of the gutter. They're still going to roll the ball, knock down some pins, but that's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to get in the way of the bowling ball.
I have never heard it talked about in that analogy, and I actually really like it. I think I'm going to steal it, because one thing I hadn't rarely ever thought about is that, when you're bumper bowling, eliminating the gutters is so you can do better, right? It means you eliminate the risk of 0 so that you can at least get 1. And I think that is a good analogy for a really well-run legal department, which is we're just trying to eliminate the huge 0, right?
The 0.
Eliminate the 0 so you can at least get the 1. Maybe that restriction might mean you don't get the full 10, but you're going to get something, and that's important. And I actually really like that. So I'm 100% going to steal that. Other than guardrails, being a business partner, what else do you think the legal department can do to help the business view it as a true partner in how they interact, so you avoid that scary lawyer designation?
Yeah, well, I think in my mind, it's meeting with not only the executive team colleagues I share, but the level 2 and level 3 people down, and getting on their radar, understanding their needs, understanding how they've approached legal issues in the past, and what concerns or obstacles they've found to date, and getting on their wavelength, understanding them as people. What's their background? How long have they been at the company? Like what are their priorities? And our role is a support role. So getting back to the empathy, and I am there to serve their needs. So I think it is important for them to, I'm not going to wait for people to come to me. I'm going to, as I'm, getting the lay of the land, trying to build out processes and policies, there will be threads to pull throughout the company. And as I do that, it's not just shooting emails and saying, hey, can you give me this info? It's maybe setting aside 15 minutes even on their calendar, quick Teams invite. It's hard. I'm totally remote now, so it'd be a lot easier to just knock on their door or stop by if we were all in the office together. But yeah, setting up Teams invites and just, saying, hey, I wanted to introduce myself. Here I am. What's your story? What can I do? If you have anything going forward, you know who to call. When you think of garbage, think of Hakeem. That's basically the approach I'll try to take. Is it garbage or trash? When you think of trash, think of Hakeem.
I don't
can't remember.
I do
Gotta
love
rewatch it.
that's the quote that came to you explaining that.
The mind works in unique ways, Sal. I don't know what it's gonna pull.
Of McDougal's. So as totally sidetracked. So let's change gears for a moment. I'd like to ask people a little bit of within their journey, how they got here. And I know you lived abroad in Dubai, kind of at a time before Dubai was like what it is now. And I'm curious, how did that impact you, if at all?
Well, I think it was huge. It was huge to my development. I mean, we're talking about somebody coming out of 8th grade, going into freshman year of high school. I grew up in Michigan, and at that time, even today, right? A lot of people graduate from 8th grade and then go to high school with their friends. They've had brothers or sisters who have gone to that school before, older brothers and sisters. They know what it's like. Their parents have taken them, so there's some roadmap to how the high school experience should go. And there's some comfort in knowing that it's going to be similar to what you've already had, right? There'll be some elements that might be different, but for the most part, it's a safe space. Well, I wasn't going to, somewhere where I knew anybody. I didn't know the school. I didn't know the location. I didn't know the customs. I didn't know the language. And it was, you either sink or swim at that point, right? Because nobody's going to be holding your hand, getting you through it. Like my parents were going through their own, relocation struggles and trying to adapt. And so the nice part about freshman year, though, is it is a clear breaking point, right? It is a fresh start in some ways and should be treated as such. So, I think it was eye-opening for me, and it really informed who I am in terms of my, worldview, my understanding of others' cultures, of other traditions, other people's experiences. It probably aided into my empathy. It just showed me a world way beyond what I would have had if I had just stayed in Michigan and gone to like the local Northville high school. The student body population was very diverse. I mean, I was just exposed to a level of diversity of ideas and culture and people and experiences and methods of education that I wouldn't have had. I think it was clutch. And then, I had to leave Dubai my senior year of high school, which is, again, not ideal. Senior year, everybody's got their friends. They are entrenched in what, we don't need a new person coming in, right? We're good. We're all can't sit, we're all booked on the friend front. And so that was another, sink or swim moment where when I moved to Florida senior year, I knew nobody. I just had to, and it sucked at first. I hated it. And my mom will tell you that, how was today? And I think I told her it sucked today. It sucked yesterday. It'll suck tomorrow. But then, like at some point, I just started, processing and thinking about what I could do to make it better, right? I don't want to it could be bad and I can let it be bad and I can complain. But I turned the dial on it and, made the most of it. And that turned out great as well, and then that prepped you for college. So the Dubai experience was huge for me on all fronts.
I hadn't heard you say that you think you'd always sort of had that growth mentality and adaptability. And I think maybe probably it was there, but it sounds like Dubai was the match that kicked it off and really showed you could do it. You've had an interesting journey, even how you got to become general counsel at True Value, right? And it seems to me, as I hear and know you, learning that you could find your path literally in a whole other country, right? Dropped in, it seems really foundational to who you are. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've said it really well and very succinctly, but I do feel it is foundational. And now that you point out some of the, going to a new gig and finding your way there and rising to the occasion as needed. Yeah, for sure. I think it's an text to my professional development.
I like to say that the struggle is important, that there's something about having to work through something to get to the other side that is really beneficial. People ask me all the time about entrepreneurship and how you found companies and how you run companies. And I always joke around like, do you like pain? Do you like a bunch of bullshit? Like, do you, right? Because it's a lot of like, you have to get past the front to get to the other side. I'm curious, knowing who you are, that you have had to struggle at times and you've found a way to adapt. Do you agree with that? Do you think struggling to get somewhere makes you a better person, a better manager, a better worker, a better employee, whatever it might be?
Yes, for sure. I think there's some layer of struggle that probably is very helpful. Do you want to be struggling at all turns? No, it's sort of it should be a momentary feeling of struggle, and then you overcome it, and then there might be more struggles in the road ahead. But yeah, I think being faced with difficulty and trying to find your way and maneuver around it is not only makes you stronger as a person, but also as an employee. I feel like as someone in the role, you're gonna have struggles, and that's just how the corporate world works. That's how life works. Anyone who's never had a struggle is probably either lying to themselves or, the luckiest person on earth. Struggle is good and not getting, but it's difficult and you can't let it bring you down. You have to know that it is, as it should be, a momentary blip in the grand scheme of things, a struggle. And so if you can find your way around it and not lose sight of the bigger picture, you'll take that, capitalize on it, and it'll make you better.
How do you get through the struggle? If in the moment it's horrible, as you said, it sucked today, it sucked yesterday, it's gonna suck next day. How do you get through that?
Hot tubs help. A nightly bath in the hot tub, just sort of I'm serious about that to some degree. Like having and maybe it's not a hot tub for everybody, right? Maybe it's a 10 minutes of mental, breathing in the morning. Maybe it's taking time for yourself to watch a movie or to escape, whatever reality you're currently living in. And maybe it's just repeating a mantra to yourself that it's not going to last. Like, we're going to get through this. You're good. You've done good things in life. You're smart. Find, everybody's got goodness in them and things they're great at. And if you're in the struggle, you have to, as tough as it is, focus on the positive, because there is positive in everybody's life and everybody's great at something and good. You just need to find that out. And if you can't find it for yourself, you need to talk to somebody who will bring that out of you and let you realize it.
Really powerful advice. All right, John, obviously you're the movie guy, so everybody wants to hear, what should they be watching right?
Well, Sal, let me tell you, what they should be watching now is what no one watched when it hit theaters in January. It's a movie
called Better Man, and it's a musical biopic featuring Robbie Williams. And most American audiences are probably not familiar with Robbie Williams, who was in the English band Take That in the 90s and then had a solo career. But the movie is from the director of The Greatest Showman, so it's got some pedigree there, and they've spent a lot on it, $100 million. And the reason why is because Robbie Williams is portrayed as a CGI chimp throughout the whole movie, as a child, as a Take That pop star in his solo career. And it sounds ridiculous, but the movie is incredible. The music's awesome. The filmmaking is spectacular. The effects are, I mean, I think it was nominated for Best Visual Effects. So it's got that going for it. So, but it's a real stunner. And if you've gotten a little bored with musical biopics of late in terms of them all feeling the same, this one will get you out of those doldrums. But it made like $1 million at the box office when it came out in January. And I think it's available on certainly iTunes now, Sal, but it's totally worth a watch. I loved it. I was kind of blown away by the filmmaking in it. And it's a fun movie. And if you don't know Robbie Williams, you should. So Better Man is what people should be watching.
I love it. I knew I would get from you something that I definitely have not seen. I also think it's hilarious. Well, maybe not hilarious, but like they spent all this money and like it just did nothing. And I know that's kind of how movies do. And this is also maybe why they just make superhero movies over and over, but they shouldn't. And so hopefully people will watch it. All right. What are you excited for that's coming out later this year? You know, what's on the horizon?
Yeah, it's hard to say if others are going to be excited or as excited about these next two as I am. But, you know, as a huge Tom Cruise fan and Mission Impossible fan, number one with a bullet on my most anticipated is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which is coming out right before Memorial Day, right near your birthday, Sal. I think it's like May 20, not on your birthday, but May 23rd, it'll be out. And I'm definitely excited about that. I will be there opening night. I will be there multiple times over the weekend. I will probably see that one 4 or 5 times in theaters based on past practice. The other one I'm super excited about as a huge I Think You Should Leave fan on Netflix, and Tim Robinson in general. Tim Robinson has a new comedy coming out with Paul Rudd called Friendship. I think that also comes out in May, and early word on it is fantastic. It looks like they filmed it in a taking it super seriously. So it looks pretty stylish and serious, but it's supposed to be just super funny about a friend who Tim Robinson is invited into a friend group, latches on to Paul Rudd, and then things go wrong and he gets kicked out of the friend group and doesn't take it well, is my read on the trailers. I can't wait for that one. Have you ever seen I Think You Should Leave on Netflix?
Yeah, it's great.
So it looks like that.
I think those
length.
are both. I think those are both good recommendations. One is just like it'll be a fun Tom Cruise movie, right? And the second should be a good laugh. So I think you're giving yourself too little credit that you picked out 2 good things that people will actually want to watch. So I'm excited to see those, and I'm sure everybody else will too. To ask, because people will always wonder if I didn't, is what is your favorite movie? And
so my favorite movie is Back to the Future. And the reason why is I think it is a perfectly constructed piece of entertainment with an ingenious script and a core idea that I wish I had thought of back in the day, which is, what if you could meet your parents when they were younger? Right. And so it's got a great core idea. It's funny. The ideas behind it are terrific. The score is amazing. Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd are at the top of their game. I've seen it probably more times than any other movie, 50 plus, you know, and every time it feels like I'm watching it. If not for the first time, I find something new, and I get excited by the last like 20 minutes when he's trying to get back to 1985. So it's definitely it's got to be my favorite movie. I don't know what else would compete with it.
It's the one I've always thought was your favorite movie. That or Mission Impossible. Well, Mission Impossible 2. I'm not sure. We don't have to have that discussion necessarily.
Mission Impossible 3, but you know, if you let me pick the whole Mission Impossible franchise, that would be a tough competitor to number 1. But I do like Mission Impossible 3, even though it doesn't get as much love as some of the other entries. What's yours? Has anybody asked you what your favorite movie is on your podcast yet?
It's not a movie podcast, so people have never thought to ask that. I am not a movie buff like you are. I like movies, but it's not like a fun foundational piece of who I am. But there are certain movies that I always go to that I love, similar to you, that I've seen a million times. Like I've seen Independence Day, I don't know, 500 times. I don't know why. It's like that movie that if it comes on TV, it just stays on. I sit there and I watch it, and like I know what's coming. I know it's kind of dumb. I don't really care. I'm going to watch it. Interestingly, Ferris Bueller's also been always one of my favorite ones. Like whenever I make jokes about Ferris Bueller, I can picture a Red Wings jersey. Like there's all these like parts of the movies that you pull back on. So for me, it's always just what did I grow up in and what did I really love is generally what I fall back on. But I don't think I have like something that I would say that's my favorite movie and why.
Well, that's fair. But you've got those that you hold dear, right?
You do. I think everybody does. As we close out today's podcast, there's a question I like to ask everybody, and I think it's actually curious for you as somebody who I would consider a creative, right? How do you find time to think? How do you find quiet time to be creative? How do you do that?
Well, I assume we're putting creative in quotation marks, but
Quotation
yes.
marks, right?
How do I find the time to be creative? I think I want to be creative, and so I make time for it. I produce. I'm not actively in theater anymore, but I'm not acting, but I produce my kids' grade school musical, right? And it's a lot of work. It's like a $40,000 production. We got, LED screens for the backgrounds. We got professional grade concert sound and lighting equipment. From third-party vendors coming in, a cast of like 60 kids, crew members, and it's I'm not getting paid for it. There's no monetary benefit. They don't even like knock off some of my daughter's tuition at school, which would be nice. But I want to do it. So as much of a time commitment it is, especially when you're juggling work and family commitments and kid sports and pickups and, on top of all that, movies that I want to watch. I want to be creative. It is an outlet for me that I'm not acting, but I do get to do that. And so if you want it, so I find the time for it and I reprioritize what I need to make it work. What do you do?
I try to separate myself from the craziness of the day and give myself a moment, whether it's a cup of coffee or a walk with my dog Javi or whatever, to let my mind kind of lay fallow with like nothing there and just let it dream or let it brainstorm or whatever it might be. I find that helps me when I come back to work, come up with different ideas or different use cases or just fun things. Frankly, it's stuff like this, right? Like, is the podcast going to make me $100 million like the Kelsey brothers? I doubt it. I mean, that'd be fantastic, but I enjoy it. I like it. And doing it actually brought me back to being in college and being a broadcast journalism major and being on TV and interviewing people. And it's like, oh yeah, I actually liked that, right? And doing these kinds of things helps my brain not be so always on for whatever the work thing might be. And so that's where I spend a lot of time. As we have heard a lot today, I'm curious if there's something for our audience that you want them to take away, a nugget, a piece of advice, something that they can go home to and apply in their life.
That is a great question. Again, I'm giving you high marks today, Sal. You're asking a lot of good questions. What would I want people to take away? I think I would want people to take away that their life is full of opportunities that are just waiting to be taken. And if you don't, I'm almost heading into like Ferris Bueller territory here. But if you don't keep your eyes open and you're not embracing sort of the self-awareness within all of us to identify those opportunities and seek them out, then you're doing yourself a disservice. And there's more to you than meets the eye, right? Everybody's got good things in them that those opportunities could avail themselves of. And if you just, reach for the stars, sometimes you might actually grab a couple.
I love it. Where can people find you? Are you on socials? Do you have billboards? How can people find you?
Got a lot of billboards. I'm at HammerVision on Twitter and Letterboxd. Letterboxd is where I do most of my socials. I think I'm at HammerVision on Instagram, on Facebook as well. and LinkedIn, you can find me. But yeah, I would, if anybody's taken with the movies, I'm always looking for new friends on Letterboxd. So come find me there and let's chat movies.
John, thanks so much for the time today. It was fantastic talking to you, and I can't wait till we do it again.
Sounds great, Sal. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for listening. You can find more podcasts on your favorite podcast platform or at joyfound.studio.